Hey there, guys. This is the Q&A that you requested. You guys asked a lot of good questions, and I'm going to try to answer them as best I can. Some of these are going to be a little bit duplicated. I think that's okay. If I can answer them a little differently, I will. I'm pretty much going to go in the order that I received them and wrote them down. So bear with me on this. It's a little improv, I guess, which I don't usually do. But here we go. Let's get to the questions. First question, you're doing a Macca's run. What's the order and does it change if you're the one driving? Macca's, for those of you that don't know, is McDonald's. I live in Australia. They call it Macca's here. The order is always nuggies, almost always. And it does not change if I'm the one driving. Nuggies are God's food. The next question is, what degree did you take and what motivated you to do so? So I graduated university with a double major in journalism and psychology with honors in journalism. I went in as a journalism major because I wanted to write and get paid to do it, and I thought that was probably my best chance to do that. I know it's still not a great outlet for getting paid, but it's better than trying to be a creative writer, I guess. So I did journalism, and then while I was there, I had so much fun in the psychology department that I added that as a second major. So I majored in both, and that's why I really wanted to write, and then I really enjoyed learning about how people think. And I think both of those things work really well together for careers in communications and marketing and PR, things like that. They're both kind of important if you want to be able to communicate with people and understand how they think. So that's why. What has been your most liked genre of audio to record, like magic, monster, medieval, slice of life, etc.? Honestly, I really do like slice of life audios for recording. I think they feel the most natural, which makes sense because they are the most natural. That said, I do have a lot of fun with the more fantasy type stories and the more sci-fi type stories. I get a kick out of talking like a computer or like an android or a Kudere alien. Those things are fun. So I don't know. I guess a lot depends on my mood. If I'm in the mood to do a fun voice, then yeah, that's the best day ever right there. And if I'm not in the mood to do a fun voice, then I'm torturing myself. So yeah, it's a very mood-based thing. Where do you see your channel in the next 5 years? Ooh, it'd be great to hit 100,000 subscribers, wouldn't it? I don't know what the chances of that are, but that would be amazing. I'd like to keep going. I'd like to keep growing and coming up with new and creative ways to tell stories to you guys and just interesting plots and characters, things that will make you want to keep listening, I guess. That's the point. I like pushing myself. I like trying new things and I like seeing what I can come up with. So hopefully we're still going strong in 5 years. Could you describe your process of creating audios a little? The whole process from inspiration to the finished audio. Okay. Well, it depends on whether it's my idea or if it's an Olympian patron's idea. I have 5 Olympian patrons, and when you're at that level on the Patreon, you get a 30-minute Discord call with me, just one-on-one every month. And the patron and I will discuss story ideas, different like script concepts and stuff, and then I will pick one of their ideas and then turn it into a script and execute it. I do not ever accept fully written scripts, not from patrons, not from listeners, nobody. I have to write all my own scripts. It's part of my process. But I am open to the ideas that the Olympian patrons share with me because that's the point. That's why they're at that level. They want to share their ideas. So either I get the idea from them or I come up with it myself, and that could be one of a couple of things. Either I'm looking at some of my old series and going, oh, I should probably continue that story. I've got a lot of thoughts about that story and I want to keep it going. It's been a little bit. Or I might an idea might spring into my head fully formed. I've had several like that were just sort of poof, like in the shower or taking a walk or something. And I'm like, oh, that's a great idea. I should write that down. So that does happen. That happens actually quite a bit, more lately than usual. But yeah, that's part of it. And sometimes somebody will say something in passing or, something will trigger a tickly part of my brain and that will just become an audio. There's so many different ways to be creative and get inspiration. Once I have the inspiration, I have a Google Doc that I build a new one every month. Every month I have one Google Doc of scripts for just that month. And then when the month rolls over, I create a new document because otherwise it would get just prohibitively long. Each month's document ends up being between 75 and 100 pages long when I'm done with it. And then, like I said, I start a new one for the next month. I go in and I write the scripts, ideally in the order that I'm going to be recording them. I put the date on there where I think it's going to be released. I put the name of the Olympian if it was their idea, any other notes I have, and then I just start writing the script directly into the document. I write my lines of dialogue. I write the word pause every time I'm going to pause for a listener response, and then I just go all the way. Each script runs between 9 and 15 pages, give or take. If it's going to be a public script, I go ahead and go into the Patreon and do my random selection for the sweetness patron of the audio, which is drawn from all of my patrons at every level. I'll just randomly select one person and they become the sweetness patron of the audio. I have a spreadsheet going to make sure I don't duplicate those. If I pick someone that's been picked before, I go back in and pick again because I don't want to duplicate until I've gotten through everybody. And so far I have not, which is great. And then once the audio is written and the script is done, I will take my laptop into the closet, which is where I am right now, sitting on the floor of my closet, surrounded by blankets. I've got blankets pinned up on the walls and hanging from the crossbars where the hangers go, things like that. I've got a curtain that I've installed across the doorway. And I sit here with my laptop and my microphone, and I record into Audacity, which is a free program for audio editing. I highly recommend it. It's a great program, very robust for the things I like to do. So if you ever want to record something just audio, highly recommend Audacity. So I'll record it in, and then I carry my laptop back to my desk, and I will put on my headphones, and I will start editing, also in Audacity. Go through and do a couple of sweeps for noise reduction, like background noise. Go in and clean up the dialogue, take out any of the repetitions, anytime I coughed, anything like that. And then once the dialogue is clean, I start the soundscaping, which could be, the background noise of a forest or doors opening and closing or a monster stomping around, depending on what the audio is. I don't like going too heavy into the soundscaping for stories. If it sounds like it's going to be more soundscaping than plot, I'm really not into it. Then I open Photoshop and I design the thumbnail, and I've got a running thumbnail file, a Photoshop file that I use. I go in and I choose which of the nymph images that I want to use. Some of those were commissioned from private artists that I commissioned over the years, and some of those are sourced from stock footage archives that I pay for. Like I pay a monthly fee for Adobe stock. I don't love Adobe, I'll be honest. I don't love their push of generative AI. It makes me uncomfortable. So I exclude generative AI from my searches and do my best to make sure I don't use it. I know there are times when it slips through. It makes me very angry. But I try to do my due diligence in that. And then I also source my background images usually from Adobe as well. So because I'm paying for it, I have the service, and then I have the right to use it. The licensing, the standard licensing for those things is available for everything except merch, I believe. As long as I don't put the images on merch, then it's fine. And then when I commission my own art, specifically my character art, I pay for the commercial licenses for those so that I can put it on merch and, anything else I want to use it for. So that's where the art comes from. I will build up my thumbnail, come up with the title, stuff like that, export it. And then I go into a program called Lightworks. Lightworks is it's like a Premiere Pro kind of thing. It's a video editing software. And I put it all together. I put the intro video in, which is used every time. I put in the new thumbnail, I put in the audio file that I've already cleaned up. I put in the end credits of the patrons and the end screen. And then I set it to render. And that can take anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour and a half to do. It's weird how that goes. Sometimes it's really quick, sometimes it's not. And then when that's all done and it's rendered out as an MP4, then I can upload it to YouTube. And so I upload it, I include all of the detail stuff, I include the credits for the artist if there's anything to credit. I credit the Olympian patron if it's somebody who gave me the idea. And, put all my links in, that kind of thing. And then it's good to go. Then it's on YouTube. And I leave it unlisted until it's either ready to go public, or I link it to the patrons and the channel members, because every week I do 2 audios, so I do this twice. The Monday audio is always public for everybody on YouTube, and the Friday audio is private just to patrons and to channel members here on YouTube, which is that little join button underneath all the audios. That's the button to join the Sweetness Club. That's the YouTube membership that we have. I think it's like $5 American, and that also unlocks the twice a week audio access, which I post those because it's not super easy to share things with the members. YouTube, for all of its ups and downs, doesn't seem to have memberships totally figured out yet, but I will post them to the YouTube community tab directly to members. So channel members will have access to those when they go to the community tab, and non-members will not see those posts. So that's really the only way I can do it, but they get it. They get the information. They also get the early access to Monday audios. Those are usually posted on Saturday, Sunday at the latest. So patrons at a certain level and all channel members will get the early access as well. So that's pretty much it. That's the process for one finished audio. I will say that the longest part of that tends to be the writing. It's something that I like to get right, so I take my time and really try to think about and stuff like that. But sometimes the soundscaping and editing can be the longest, but it's usually the writing. And as far as how long the whole process takes, it really varies by audio, but I would say it takes, usually a couple of hours to write a full script, anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to record it, another hour to 2 hours to edit it, however long it takes to render. Like I said, that's about 30 minutes to an hour and a half, usually, depending, and then the upload, and then all the little assorted stuff around it. The thumbnail work can take anywhere from 10 minutes if I know exactly what I want, to an hour if I have to go source new art, or if I need a new background and I'm trying to figure out what to use. So yeah, that's pretty much the process. I hope that clarifies it a little bit for you. There's a lot of steps, and like I said, I do it twice a week in addition to my day job, which means I generally don't get days off, but that's okay. I like what I do, and I like that I'm doing this. I like you guys enjoying it. Okay, next question. You can have dinner with any 3 guests, real or fictional, living or dead. Who do you choose? I feel like these questions are a little bit of a trap because it's really hard to narrow it down when you get living or dead and real or fictional. It's too broad. There's just too many choices. If it had to be somebody real, I'd say probably Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I always thought she was kind of a badass. Dolly Parton is definitely up there. She is an amazing human being. I would love to talk to her and get to know her a little better. Fictional? Fictional is almost too big of a can of worms to even open. God, there's so many. I would love to spend time with, going back to real, not fictional, but Sir Patrick Stewart would definitely be up there. Okay, let me try and think of a fictional. I clearly did not super prepare for this audio. I wanted to be kind of cold when I was answering these, and that has definitely turned out to be the case. It'd be fun to experience like a party in the Lord of the Rings universe, like a really fun, like big banquet of a dinner with a variety of races and everybody kind of having their own good time, and like that just sounds like a really good time, doesn't it? Like dwarves and elves and hobbits, and everybody just really likes food and likes the company and is singing, and like that just, I know it's not a specific character, but when I think about the vibe that I want, that's the vibe that I want. Like it sounds like just the best like family dinner, but like with a family that you actually like. That could be fun. Okay, I'm going to leave that one for now so I can move on to the other questions, but I will keep thinking about it in the back of my mind as we go. Maybe I'll come up with some better ideas. Who's your favorite character you've come up with and played in your audios? Ooh, again, it's like you're asking me to pick my favorite child. There's another question about ranking my characters, and that's a similar type of question. The answer is, again, it kind of depends on my mood. Like most of the time I really like the vampire roommate because she's the most like me. as far as personality. She's basically me if I was a vampire. And to me, that's very comforting. You know, it's very familiar. It feels like I can just kind of be myself with her. That said, though, just because something is like my favorite to play with doesn't necessarily mean it's my favorite character, you know? Like, as far as personality, I really like the Elf Bandit. I think she's a very strong-willed personality. She's seen a lot of the world. She has very set goals. She knows what she wants out of life. And she doesn't let the little things really get to her. She kind of rolls with it, which I love. I'm really enjoying the Tiefling character that I introduced recently because I get to play things with her that are not very much like myself, like having a temper and being kind of petulant and being kind of, for lack of a better word, whiny and strong-willed, but not necessarily in the best way. I kind of love that. I kind of love getting to play her and getting to express that in a way that's kind of different from my other characters, that she's not some paragon of virtue. She's kind of annoying, but she has redeeming qualities. So yeah, I'd say right now she's probably up there as one of my favorites to play. Do all of your audios take place in the same universe or multiverse? And could we ever expect crossover episodes? They don't, but a lot of them do. They don't all take place in the same universe, but a lot of them do. The Vampire Roommate takes place in the same universe as the Werewolf Listener, and they have crossed over a few times. They've had dinner together, and after the Vampire Roommate and the Listener escape from the cult, they hole up at the Werewolf Listener couple's apartment to regroup. Crossover episodes proper are probably not going to happen because I would have to play more than one character and their voices are not different enough to distinguish who's talking to whom. I do play a lot of characters with accents or different cadences, but for the ones that are in specific universes together, I really don't. I focus more on the story. I got I got called out on Twitter a couple of months ago. There was a guy that I basically blocked him on Twitter because he was making me uncomfortable. And he got very offended by that and tried to say that I was a bad actress because all of my characters sound the same. Now, obviously, that's just not empirically true because, again, I do a bunch of accents with different characters. I do, like, you know, Cuteray aliens and androids and southern sugar plum fairies and things like that. But on top of that, when you think about an actor, do you necessarily imagine them doing a different voice in every character they play? I don't think you do. In fact, many actors are chosen for their roles specifically based on the voice that they tend to use because that is their voice, that is their tone, and that is what a director or, you know, a casting director want for a particular part. So, like, I look at Ryan Reynolds and he's basically the same in everything. You know, like, it's not like his voice changes. It's not like really anything changes. He's Ryan Reynolds in everything with minor modifications. So I don't necessarily see a problem with my characters sounding very similar, especially the ones that have a lot of story to tell, because that's the point, is the story. But that said, it does make it challenging then to put them in the same audio, you know, and I generally won't do that. I also, as far as other crossovers or other what exists in what universe, I've mostly been okay with sort of imagining that, like, the Tsundere mermaid exists in the Vampire Roommates universe. The Kitsune does not, because in the Kitsune universe, all the fantasy characters are more underground. You know, it's more like a Buffy the Vampire Slayer or like a supernatural kind of thing where they are not integrated with society in a way that people just sort of know. Whereas in the Vampire Roommate universe, all of the creatures that exist in this world exist together and they acknowledge each other and they have laws and governing bodies that are built around that. So yeah, there are some that just do not cross over. If it makes you happy to imagine... Hang on, I'm adjusting my stance here. I've been sitting here for a minute. If it makes you happy to imagine that different characters exist in the same universe and it makes sense in canon, go for it. It doesn't bother me at all. A lot of my comfort audios could easily be the same couple, or could even be one of the main couples just having a normal problem or a normal situation that they need to solve. So, yeah, if you want to do that, do that. I'm totally okay with it. But yeah, as far as my headcanon, there are some overlaps, but there's also some very distinct universes. And of course, like the Elf Bandit is a fully fantasy universe, so that would not cross over. The post-apocalyptic scavenger is a fully sci-fi universe, so that would not cross over. But I guess if you really wanted to, you could sort of imagine that maybe the sentient mech would exist in the post-apocalyptic universe. Sure. If you can find your way around that in your head, I'm down. That's fine. I'm probably not going to write that myself, but you do you. Is there an audio that got way more traction than you initially expected it to? The first Vampire Roommate, definitely. That was sort of the pop-off of the channel. I didn't really think that people were going to care that much about it. I just wanted to do something different, something interesting. That was very early days of the channel. It was maybe a month old. And I'd been wanting to do a Friends to Lovers roommate story pretty much since I started the channel. And then I was like, what can I do to make it not boring? What can I do to make it just a little more interesting? And I thought, well, how about one character is a vampire? There we go. That makes it fun. And then that story completely popped off, and I started writing a few more of them. And then around about episode 4, I toyed with the idea of killing her off. And people got so mad. They got so mad in the comments. I thought they were going to come for me. So, yep, can't do that, which is the reason why that story has gone on so long. It's the only one that is allowed to go on that long. And it's because people genuinely seem to like her that much. And I completed the first arc that I wanted to tell, and I started writing other arcs, and now we're in another arc with her. And I'm not as driven to crank out an episode a month with that like I was. For a while there, I was really pushing myself a little too hard to do that. So now I'm giving myself a little bit of grace and letting myself take my time a bit on that story. I still know where I want to go with it, but I want to tell it right, especially now. The other one that kind of surprised me was Medusa and the Blind Listener. That one popped off a lot more than I expected it to. I just didn't think that was going to resonate with people all that much because I imagine most of my audience is not blind. But because I have another audio specifically for visually impaired people. And that one I wrote when I got a request from a visually impaired person who was like, hey, would you mind doing a story like this? And so I wrote a script, and then I sent it to that person, and I was like, how does this sound? Does it sound like I am handling the topic in a tasteful way? Does it sound like I am, not stepping on any toes? I wanted to make sure that somebody in that space could review and approve what I was trying to do, because I don't have that lived experience, and I don't want to speak over anybody or speak for somebody. I want to amplify voices for those that need it. And they said, yeah, this is really good. This is exactly what I had in mind. So I recorded it, and it's a very niche audio. For most people, it does not resonate. But about every 3 or 4 months, I'll get another comment on it from somebody saying, I'm visually impaired and this was perfect. So that's nice. I like that. But I didn't think the Medusa one would do that well for that reason. So that one being successful surprised me. And actually, that one's got a few parts now. The most recent part of that one, I believe, is part 4, and it's one of the exclusive Patreon audios right now. And I really like part 4, I'll be honest. It's really good. I think part 4 really progressed the story, really progressed the dynamic between the two characters, and I really, really like how it turned out. So if you ever think of joining the Patreon, that's a pretty good reason. That one is pretty damn good. And that's the only way to listen to it until it goes public, which could be quite a long time, because I do a poll once a month on which audio should go public, and that one didn't win when it was in the poll, so... When you come back to a character that you haven't done a video on in a while, do you go back and listen to videos to try and remember the voice and what's already happened, or do you just remember? If it's a character with a particular voice, I will sometimes go back and listen to the last 5 minutes of the previous installment of that story, so I can make sure to get the cadence right, to be like, how did this one talk again? Oh, okay, yeah, that's right. And I'll pretty easily find it again. It just takes a minute to listen to it and go, yeah, there it is. And then that last 5 minutes will also remind me exactly where we left off. Because a lot of these stories, the whole arc is in my head, but I will forget exactly where the last stopping point was before I pick it up again. So to remind myself, be like, oh yeah, this was the part we left. I've got XYZ left to do in this arc. And so that's where I can pick up and start writing again. So yeah, I will if it's been a while, I will remind myself. Some stories I don't need to because they're more fresh than that. But yeah, 100% I will go back and be like, oh, that's where I was in the story. Because in my head, the whole story exists. And so it's very easy to be like, no, like I'll remember, and then I'll either skip something important or double back. So yeah, for sure I will do that. Do you have a favorite character you've voiced? And conversely, do you have a least favorite? This feels like the question from above, the favorite character I've come up with and played. Kind of the same answer as far as the voicing. I like the vampire roommate a lot just because it's so natural to speak through her. Least favorite to voice, anything where I do the kind of childish voice, I call it the legally distinct pyro child, but it's basically the same voice as Annie from League of Legends. If you've played League of Legends, there's a character called Annie. She's a little girl that lights things on fire, and she's got a very distinctive, like, child voice. That voice I don't love doing. It kind of hurts the face a little bit to do for a long time. I do, over on Twitch where I stream, I do have a point redeem, where people can make me use that accent for like 5 minutes at a time. And every time it makes me cringe when somebody redeems that. And I realize that it's my fault and I could just take that redeem away. But I want to give people a chance to interact, and if they want to hear it, they want to hear it. And some people really like that goofy voice. It's just not the easiest thing to do, I guess. And especially over the course of like a 10-minute audio, it's kind of painful. I'll do it for a second here so you can kind of hear what I mean, but
This is the voice that I'm talking about, and it's not great to listen to, and it's not great to do, so whatever. I know some people like it, I guess.
There you go. That's that voice. And again, that's not a filter. That's just me changing how I talk. So I see the value in it. I just don't like to do it for a very long time. So any character that uses that voice is going to fall into the least favorite category, just from a delivery perspective. What was your most favorite game to stream, or which stream is your favorite? Okay, yeah, streaming questions. If you don't know, I do stream over on Twitch under Urban Nymph. I stream like 3 or 4 times a week, depending on my schedule. And I tend to veer towards comfy games or weird indie games. I really like weird indie games. I love finding very strange games that nobody else is talking about and trying to make sense of them. But as far as my favorite game to stream, I spent a lot of time on Stardew Valley, and it was a good vibe. I really enjoyed Stardew Valley. It's sort of like, I feel like it fits me in the sense that it is a cozy game, and it's got that little bit of survival, building, crafting kind of thing, but not too much, because games that lean too hard into that, I get very tired of very fast. But this one, like, you already have a house to start with. You're probably not going to starve to death if you just manage your shit. It's fine. But there's also weird things happening. There's spooky things happening. You've got quests to do. It's not like you can't play the game without doing those things. You can. Like, you can just meander around and cut down trees constantly and never do anything and still enjoy the gameplay. But if you want to progress, you can. And there's things you can do. So I like that balance, I think. I always thought that was a very good balance of being able to do things, but also having the option not to. Because I've gotten very worn out on games where they drop you in, you're, naked and in a wasteland, and you immediately have to start chopping down trees and pulling up grass and collecting rocks and building weapons and building a shelter and building clothes for yourself, and you got to do it fast or otherwise something's going to attack you. And it's like, okay, cool. And then the whole game, you're just scraping by, trying to build a slightly nicer place, trying to get slightly nicer food, trying to fight off increasingly dangerous mobs. And it's like, is there a point? Are we going somewhere with this? Or is it just to see how far I can go, how big a civilization I can build, how long I can survive? And that's fine. There is a certain appeal to that. Like, I like Minecraft a lot. I love Minecraft. I could play Minecraft anytime. It's just a nice, cool vibe. But some of those games, it just feels like the pressure from the second you spawn to feed and clothe and shelter yourself immediately. It's just work. It's a chore simulator. And I know for some people that's very, very relaxing and it's like their way to decompress, and that's great. I love that. But anytime somebody suggests another game like that, even stuff like Animal Crossing I tried to get into and I couldn't. Disney Dreamlight Valley I tried to get into and I couldn't. What are some of the other ones? There's a bunch. Like Valheim. There's so many games where it was just like drop in, survive, fight things. I was pretty okay with 7 Days to Die, but I played that with friends, so it made it a little bit easier. And even then, after about 4 weeks in game, where you've had like 4 nights, 4 of the horde nights, where the zombies come hard and like try to take your shit, then you start to go, okay, what is the end game here? They're going to keep getting harder. We're going to keep building better weapons. Either they overrun us and we lose, or we build such great weapons that it no longer becomes a challenge. At that point, what? Does the game just end, or do we just keep playing it, ad nauseum? Like, I don't know. It's fun. It's a good time, especially with friends, but I can't really do it forever. It's not really my vibe. But there's other games I've really enjoyed streaming. Right now, my favorite game to stream is Placid Plastic Duck Simulator. And maybe this is a good time to talk about the Duckathon. So Placid Plastic Duck Simulator is a little indie game. And basically it's a swimming pool. You have a swimming pool. And ducks will drop into the swimming pool randomly. The first duck is always a very basic yellow rubber ducky with a little beak, a little orange beak, and he drops in. And then a couple minutes will pass and another duck will drop in. And they come in at random and their designs change. Sometimes they're just very simple, like, oh, this duck has polka dots. And sometimes they're more complicated, like this duck is a little firefighter and he shoots water. Things like that. You have no control over what duck drops, and you have no control over the ducks themselves. You can change your perspective. You can look at the ducks, you can zoom in on them, but you can't move them. They just float. They follow a little current. They go up and down like chutes and slides and stuff on their own, but you can't control them. It sounds like the most pointless game in the entire world, but it is it's just very addictive. And also, people really like watching it. You guys that come to my streams, we love the duck stuff. Like, it's just so strange. This game, in part because there's multiple maps, there's different pools you can use to drop into, and I have all of them because of course I do. But also there's lore. This game has deep lore, and it's fascinating. And you unpack it as you go, and it's just the weirdest damn thing. And I've got people in the chat Googling, like, converting hex code to ASCII and then to English to tell me what things mean, because that's the kind of shit that comes up with these ducks. It's the weirdest thing. I can't explain it better than that. But the one other thing you can do is rename the ducks to anything you want. You can name them. So the way the Duckathon worked when we did a Duckathon was that I let people gift a sub or submit bits or leave a tip. And if they did that, they could name a duck. And if somebody wanted somebody else's duck, like there was this little shark duck that people really liked, and somebody claimed the shark duck, somebody else wanted the shark duck, so they had the power to steal that with another like 5 gift subs or something. And then you could steal it back, and you could go back and forth, and people were fighting over ducks. And I get it, because man, some of these ducks are super cute and you get very attached to them, and I can't explain why. I am currently very attached to the little disco ball duck, which looks like a mirror ball, and he plays disco music instead of quacking, and at night he has flashing lights like a rave. And I love him. He's great. He's the best. So if somebody else claims him, I might cry. But that's how the Duckathon went. And for a much higher amount of money or gift subs, people that were frustrated could basically wipe the board, and all the ducks would lose their names and we'd start again. That happened, I think, twice during the last Duckathon, which is hilarious to me. Like, I absolutely love how involved we get with these ducks. I have played this game, I think 40 hours now, and I'm not tired of it, and neither is chat. So like, it's the weird, I can't explain why. It's baffling. I love it. I'm going to do another duckathon when I get back from this trip next week. Look for this mid-November. If you don't currently follow me on Twitch, definitely follow me on Twitch, because mid-November we're going to have another duckathon. It's going to be fun. It's going to be chaos. It's going to be fun. I am ready. But first I'm going to have a vote so people can vote on which map they want to use for the duckathon. It's going to be on Twitter, Patreon, and Discord. Everybody can vote. And we'll choose a map and we'll go from there. So yeah, that is my current favorite game to stream, and honestly, it makes for some really fun streams, like really interactive, fun streams for everybody. So I love that. I love when the chat can actually like be a part of the fun and interact and like be very hands-on with the things that we're doing. So definitely stay tuned. That's going to be fun. Okay, next question. I feel like this is going to be a very long audio. Are there some less present characters that you would like to see coming back? Ooh, I mean, I kind of control that. There's a few characters that I have not brought back because they were specifically Olympian patron ideas, and then those patrons did not circle back to those stories, and I don't want to progress them without the patrons' input. So there's a couple like that. The Sentient Bow is one of those. But for the most part, if there's a character I want to keep telling the story for, I will. And if there's a character that I don't really know where to go with, I will sit on it. Both the Saving the Superhero and Sentient Mech audios, the first episodes of those, which were like within the first few months of my channel, both of those sat without a sequel for a very long time because I had a couple of ideas for sequels, but I wasn't in love with my ideas, and I didn't want to take those stories forward until I knew exactly what I wanted to do, until something really hit me over the head and said, this is a great idea. Meantime, people kept asking, when are we going to get another Saving the Superhero? When are we going to get another Sentient Mech? And I got very demanding comments from people who were insistent that I do another one. And it was like, no, not until the idea hits me just right. And it finally did for both of those. But I was not going to force it. Brute forcing a story is rarely a good idea. So as far as characters that are present or less present, that kind of depends entirely on what story I'm in the place to tell. And I sort of let that go organically. I'm not going to try and force it. But there aren't really any characters that I super miss and really want to bring back. Like, I feel like I'm in a good place with most of them as far as where I am in the story. I've never been to Australia. Is there anything you found particularly surprising or unexpectedly enjoyed a lot when you moved there? Ooh, an Australia question. Yes, for those of you that don't know, I used to live in Florida and now I live in Australia. It is quite a bit different, but not in a bad way. Okay, one of the very first things that I discovered when I moved to Australia was that the McDonald's here has the full menu all day, whereas the McDonald's in the US has breakfast all day, but you can only get like the lunch and dinner things at lunch and dinner. Here, I can get nuggies at 8 in the morning, and that makes me happy. I really like that. I almost never do that, really only if we take a road trip. Like, we'll get in the car, get on the road, stop at McDonald's on the way out of town. Then I get my morning nuggies. But just having the option, being able to get nuggies at 8 in the morning, I don't know why all McDonald's don't do this. It's amazing. You can get a cheeseburger at 8 in the morning, whatever you want. It's perfect. Highly recommend. I don't know if that's unique to Australia or if that's just non-American, I guess, but other things about Australia. Kangaroos really are everywhere. They're everywhere and they are a bit of a nuisance. If you hit one with your car, it's like hitting a deer, only kind of worse. They're very muscular and they will absolutely screw your car up. But there's a park that we like to walk in sometimes and it is just lousy with kangaroos. They're everywhere. They don't let us get very close, but we have a little YouTube channel called The Adventures of Loop and Ree, and I've put a few videos on it. I hope to put on more after our trip, but right now there's a few videos on it of us walking around and looking at kangaroos and stuff, and I don't know, I think they turned out kind of cute. The audio is shit because we used a crappy GoPro, so I just used like overlay music instead. But again, I'm hoping that this coming trip we're about to take, we can get some better video of different things. Not kangaroos, we're not going to be in Australia, but different things, and then also better audio so that we can actually share the audio with you. But yeah, The Adventures of Loop and Ray, definitely check that out if you want to see some of our adventures. I think there's also a video there where we go to Gnomesville. Gnomesville is a very interesting place. That's all I'm going to say about that. If you'd like to look up Gnomesville, you'll see what I mean. But Australia is very cool. It's definitely its own culture, and I like it. Next question. How are you? Oh, that's a nice question. I'm okay. I'm very busy. Between the channel and the day job and everything else, I'm very, very busy. I definitely don't sleep as much as I should. I do find time to work out, which is good. I'm definitely working on being healthier and taking better care of myself. Sleep is just the hard one. It's very difficult to have enough time to sleep and make sure the sleep I get is quality sleep. You know how that is. But in general, I think I'm okay. A little bit of a headache, but I'll be fine. How has your equipment evolution been? What mics did you use and like or dislike? How have you adjusted your recording room? Okay. My first mic, I couldn't even tell you what brand it was. It was just a little $20 mic. I don't remember what it was. The first upgraded mic I used was a Rode mic. It was pretty good. I liked that. I currently use an Elgato Wave 3, which I really like. It's got built-in mixing software and stuff. I don't really use the mixing software, but it's there if I need it. I also use it for my streaming, so it's very convenient for both. As far as any other equipment, it's really just always been my laptop. I have a laptop and that's what I use for everything, streaming and recording and all of that. And as far as recording room, it's just always been a closet. It's always been sitting on the floor of a closet because closets have a lot of clothes, so they help dampen the sound. And I've also got some blankets that are like held up, like clipped in here. And then closets in general also don't have vents. So if like the air conditioning or the heating kicks on, you don't hear it. So I know a lot of VAs that record in their closets. It's just such a natural space to do it in. But even when I lived in the UK, even when I lived in Florida, everywhere I've ever been, I record in closets. So I hope that helps. What is your favorite song or few songs, since it's hard to pick one sometimes? My current favorite song is the Youngblood version of I Was Made for Loving You from the Fall Guy soundtrack. I could listen to that over and over again. Also really kind of into the Deadpool and Wolverine soundtrack right now because it's just a good movie, so it's very catchy. And Heat of the Moment by Asia. It's been in my head for like a week. So I feel like song taste changes a lot, even just over the course of like a month. Your mood is influenced. Like the songs I listen to when I work out are very different from the songs I listen to when I just want to take a walk or sit by myself and vibe or, ride the bus to work or whatever. It's all very different sounds, very different moods. So it's hard to pick a favorite, but as far as just like what's in my head or what I have been turning on for myself lately, probably those. How did you get your online name? The history of the name Urban Nymph. Okay. So I was one of those kids that was super into Greek mythology, Greek and Roman mythology, a little bit of Egyptian, a little bit of Norse, but mostly Greek and Roman. I would read anything I could find about Greek and Roman mythology. I was super into it. So when it came time to come up with a channel name, that seemed kind of natural to me, but I wanted to put a little bit of a twist on it. And I like nature. I like going for hikes. I like going out in nature, but I don't want to live out in the middle of nowhere. It makes me uncomfortable to be isolated from like services. I want to be within reach of emergency services, food delivery, all of the nice resources and accessibility that cities have. I don't necessarily want to be in the city, but I like cities. I like being city adjacent. So I decided that my kind of nymph, instead of being like the kind that protects nature and takes care of trees and water and things like that, my kind would be the kind that hangs out in cities. And I realized that in the mythology, it's more likely that a god would be the patron of a city, like Athens and Athena. But I don't care. I decided that nymphs could also be protector spirits of city things. So that's kind of where it came from, was I wanted to be like that kind of vibe, that it's still energy and people and bustling and opportunity, but also that sort of mythological protector vibe. I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well, but that's where it came from. If you were approached by a studio to make Vampire Roommate into a TV series, would you? Ooh. I would definitely talk about it. I would entertain the thought. If they were going to change it a lot, I don't know, but I understand that in the process of taking an idea and adapting it for television, a lot of change is required. And there would obviously need to be a lot of fleshing out. I have the world of Vampire Roommate exists in my head as a very, very rich world. The world building is there. There's a lot to it that doesn't appear in the audios because it would not appear organically. And I'm not going to do an exposition dump. I'm not going to have two characters who live in a world have a conversation about how that world works because they know that stuff. They live in that world. Like, you don't sit with other people and talk about how your world functions because everybody just sort of understands. That's the world you live in. And that sort of exposition is not natural. That's not how people talk. Unless something changes and then it's like, oh, hey, something has changed in our world. This is how it works now. And it's like, okay, if we're discussing a change, that's one thing. But if it's just basic world building, it needs to be organic. It needs to be dropped in naturally. And then the audience, whom you should trust as a writer, can then infer, oh, this must be how it works in this world. So instead of, like, when she gets a letter from the registry telling her she needs to come in and, blah, 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 you can tell from the tone that the registry are a pain in the ass. You don't need her to stand there and say, yes, the registry, this organization that does blah, 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 blah. Because again, the listener would already know this. This is information the listener has to live in this world. So there would be no exposition in that moment, but you can tell from the way she reacts, oh God, I got a letter from the registry. What the hell do they want now? Like, you can infer a lot from that. You can tell what she's dealing with. So that world building has to be natural. And if it was to be adapted for television, all of the world building that's in my head that you guys don't see because it hasn't occurred yet as far as like a natural drop, that would probably have to be generated. And I would have to see whether they're going to respect where my head is with that or whether they're going to do their own thing. And yeah, I would discuss it. I'm not saying yes or no to something like that, but I would certainly be open to it if they would at least have a modicum of respect for the creative direction that I like to take the story in. I totally understand television shows are adapted. There have to be a lot of changes. There have to be a lot of little things that are tweaked. Totally fine. But if it's unrecognizable from the original product, what's the point, right? Doesn't make any sense. So yes, I would be open to that conversation. I would like to know what anime you have seen. Oh boy. This is a loaded question because I've seen a lot of anime, like a lot. Okay, I'm going to try and give a few examples. I watch anime. I used to watch it almost daily. Now I've cut back a little bit, but as far as like favorite shows, I guess maybe I can narrow it down a little bit. I really liked Assassination Classroom. That was a really good one. Or on High School Host Club is always kind of a fun, cute one for me. I'll come back to that to have it on the background for stuff. I watched My Hero Academia. I kind of fell off with that after like the 5th season. I kind of lost interest. Love Toradora. Love Fruits Basket. Love Noragami. Promised Neverland was really good, but only the 1st season. We do not speak of the 2nd season. It is dead to me. Zombieland Saga is really good, at least the 1st season. 2nd season was kind of mid. Kaguya-sama Love is War, really liked that. Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works, which was just pretty to look at. I didn't really have to know what was going on. It was just pretty. Same for Demon Slayer, really. It was pretty to look at. Demon Slayer I fell off of after some of the side characters started coming in and ruining it for me, but it was really pretty. Rising the Shield Hero I couldn't get into. I'm a little too skeeved out by there's a lot of slavery in isekais. I'm really not on board with it. Relife was cute. What else? There were some that were really, really bad, like Magical Girl Raising Project. Please don't watch it. That became an exercise in, are they going to kill the pregnant one? Oh, they did. Like, spoilers, they did. Like, big shock. Not good. Don't recommend. I did watch Jujutsu Kaisen, the 1st season. I got what all the hype was about, but I just, for some reason, wasn't motivated to go past that. I don't know. Cells at Work was cute. That's a cute one. Vampire Dies in No Time was cute in the 1st season. Again, don't bother with the 2nd. They just tried to go harder with the silly jokes and ended up breaking it. Sleepy Princess and the Demon Castle, I was thoroughly entertained by. It's goofy, but I loved it. Spy X Family was pretty good at the start. Love After World Domination was cute. Symphogear was... I watched it because so many people love Symphogear in a weird sort of way. Like there's a weird online cult following for it. I get it. I don't share it, but I get it. Bochi the Rock is cute. Zom 100 I had higher hopes for. It started really good. I feel like it kind of faltered a little bit near the end. Oshinoko was surprisingly good, although the premise is absolutely bonkers. And the first episode is also like an hour and a half long, but I do still recommend it. But again, bonkers premise. Just go into it knowing that. It is fucking weird. Yeah, I watch a lot of anime. Character ranking, we kind of went into that. The opinion of characters. If we count all of my one-off audios, that's a lot of characters, guys. That's a shit ton of characters. And I definitely can't rank them all, but I have talked about which ones are my favorite to do. And the same with which I enjoy recording the most. So yeah. And how I come up with audio ideas, I did talk a little bit about that. Some of them come from the Olympian patrons, and some of them are just things that pop into my head. Sometimes they are influenced by real life. Like there's a caring for each other when we're sick audio. I think that might just be on the Patreon. But that one came from when we had COVID. We had COVID, we were very sick, and I was like, hey, this experience is probably something people can relate to. And if it's an experience you guys can relate to, I'm going to try and make an audio out of it so that you can use it when you feel down or upset or, just need a little comfort in that particular space. Because that's the point, right? To make things that you guys can relate to. Where would I recommend anyone visit? Ooh. I like Washington, D.C. I'm kind of a sucker for it. It's hard not to feel something when you're there and you're surrounded by museums and monuments and history, and it kind of hits you a little bit. Like there's a vibe there that's hard to explain, like the feeling of like where decisions are made. It's pretty cool. Like obviously there's a lot of touristy shit and stuff, but like the Smithsonian, like, oh my God. The Air and Space Museum is great. The Natural History Museum is great. My favorite Smithsonian though is the Renwick Gallery. And it is right across from the White House. And it is basically like an old mansion that has been turned into a museum. And I love it. I love it so much. They change the exhibits every so often. And it's mostly art, but like, it's so cool. Definitely recommend the Renwick Gallery. Can't say enough good things about it. I like to, when I go to DC, I like to stay in Foggy Bottom and then walk over to the Renwick and the White House, and then from there to the monuments. It's walkable. Like DC is one of those towns that like if you are okay with walking, it's walkable. But it's just far enough that you might be more comfortable taking like a bus or the train or something. But yeah, I really like visiting Washington DC. I recommend it, especially if you're American and you've got like skin in the game. Like, go see where your laws are made. I've spent quite a bit of time there. Some for fun and some for less fun reasons. But yeah, do recommend that. Favorite vacation that I ever took? Probably the first time I came here to Australia, because it was a lot of culture shock, but it was also really, really cool. And did a lot of really fun things all at once. Got to go see the quokkas out on Rottnest Island. Got to tour the haunted prison at night. Things like that. Did the touristy stuff, which is always fun. So that was definitely, I do recommend Australia. Like I said, I know it's a pain to get to, but it's a fun place to visit. If you were given the opportunity to VA work for audiobooks, TV shows, movies, games, would you take it? Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. I like doing the VA stuff. I think it's fun. I usually take collabs when people ask if I have the time, and if it's a script that I vibe with, I'm all over it. Yeah, I'd be down for that. Planning to do more ASMR type videos. I will always do a few ASMR videos here and there. It's obviously not my focus, but every so often. Like I've got my little mannequin head with my haircutting scissors and stuff. I could definitely do more of those and things like that. They're on the list, definitely. What specific aspect of writing audios is your favorite to do? i.e., if writing your characters is the best part of making an audio, then what's your favorite thing to do in writing your characters? I don't know if I have a favorite part of writing, because I write the way I think and how I speak, because then when I go to record it, it's one take. I've never needed more than one take to lay down a whole script. So, like, the only thing that holds me back is coughing. Sometimes I have a coughing fit, I have to pause for a second. But yeah, the writing just kind of flows out of me. I just write as if I'm having a conversation about something, whether it's I'm having a conversation with my werewolf boyfriend, or having a conversation with the angel listener, or having a conversation with, the prince in the Elf Bandit series. Doesn't matter who I'm talking to. It's just the conversation flows and I just write it as I go. It's a good feeling when it really flows well, and I just kind of like tear through it because I'm like, man, this whole conversation is just unfolding for me. I love it. Like, there's no blocks, there's no hesitation. It just like feels very natural. Like, I do love it when that happens. I guess of all the things, that'd be my favorite thing about writing, is when it really flows. What was the most fun to record audio? I did one recently that is actually on the Patreon right now called Wake Up Chosen One. And I really had a lot of fun with that because I got to go back and forth between being like this prophet, this oracle who's like, hey, you are the chosen one. It's time for you to take your place. And basically like shaking awake this listener who doesn't want any part of it and is like come on, you gotta get up and do your thing. Like this, do you know what chosen one means? And like I had a lot of fun kind of going back and forth with that and just getting increasingly exasperated with the listener for not like participating in the whole chosen one narrative, because let's face it, not every chosen one wants to be, right? Like not every chosen one wants to save the world. Sometimes they just want agency over their own choices. So I thought that was a lot of fun to record. Outside of that one, any audio where I get to be a little like, I don't know if sassy is the word, but the tiefling ones are pretty fun. The fairy ones are pretty fun. Like the junior fairy that's mad at her job, things like that, where I get to be a little grumpy, I guess. Those are usually pretty fun. How do you come up with ideas and write them out fast enough? I have told you. I work really hard at it pretty much all the time. How well would your characters get along? Probably pretty well. I feel like most of them would get along pretty well. Not all of them would be very open and very sociable, I guess. Many of my characters are introverts because I am an introvert. So, but I feel like they would at least play nicely with each other. I could imagine more than one of them getting kind of annoyed at the Kudere alien, but then she's not an alien anymore, is she? What sparked the interest in Greek mythology? Was it lifelong or did something prompt it? It was just lifelong. I don't remember a time that I wasn't into it. I don't remember anything in particular sparking it. It was literally just a thing. I'm sure my parents had books and movies and stuff they exposed me to that got me on that train, but I don't remember. It was just an always thing. Do you plan on adding any new themes to bingo? This is another streaming question. So sometimes over on Twitch, we play bingo. And traditionally, when we've done it, it's been Aussie dashcam bingo, because there's a channel that curates assortments of dashcam footage, specifically from Australia, and makes videos out of it, basically. And so we'll sit and watch those and play bingo. I make custom bingo cards, and I make it so that everybody gets one, and everybody's is different. They're all unique. And we play bingo as we go. And Lupus and I usually co-host it, and we are the judges that decide whether something meets the criteria for a particular thing, like whether a sky is appropriately the right color for a sunset, or whether, a person getting out of their car counts as confronting somebody else, things like that. These are all bingo categories. When somebody calls bingo, we check their card, and then we'll just keep playing for like a couple of hours. And over that time, maybe 6 or 7 people will win. And then at the end, I will send like stickers to the winners in the mail to thank them for playing. It's like their prize. So that's fun. We've talked about doing different themes for the bingo, like a Russian dash cam and stuff like that. It's definitely something we want to do. There's a couple of hurdles to this. One, the Aussie dash cam people are the best at putting these videos compilations together, like giving us the footage we need to play the game. Other like Russian dashcam footage or even American dashcam footage is harder to find a video that has a bunch of different clips in it, especially that aren't like really graphically violent or bad, because obviously we cannot show that on Twitch. So we'd have to flip back and forth between a lot of videos, and that would make it a lot tougher. We can't do it where it's like each video is only a minute long. Like, we really need those compilations so we can let it run and play the game. You know what I mean? So it's harder to find those compilations in pretty much any other flavor. And even if we did, then I would have to watch them all so that I could build a bingo that is specific to that. So like Russian dashcam bingo may have different things on the bingo card. There's specific things to different regions that I would have to take into account for the bingo. And that, both finding the clips and then watching them so that I could make the content for the bingo cards, is a time suck that I don't have time for right now. I wish I did. I really do. But that's a level of research that I just can't put the time into right now with everything else going on. If I ever get back to doing the channel stuff full time again and I don't have to do the day job anymore, maybe, because then I would have, hours more free time that I could just spend putting that stuff together. In the meantime, though, I would have to say that if we were going to bring bingo back anytime soon, it would have to be the dashcam one, only because, the Aussie dashcam one, only because those are pre-compiled. The content is all there for us in clip form, one after another in the same video, and we already have the bingo cards good to go. So, and I do have notes to add to the next round of Aussie dashcam bingo cards. Every time we play, we find a few more things we want to put on the card. I've got those. Those will be on the next one. I couldn't tell you when the next bingo will be, but I really like doing them, so I hope we can do some. I'd like to do another one before Christmas. We're going to do the duckathon, and then maybe we'll do a bingo like in December. And we can all play that, and I can send stickers to the winners, and it'll be a good time. But yeah, until the Patreon gets back to a point where I can, live on it again, it's not going to be something I can devote a lot of time to, unfortunately. That's okay. Last question. Yay. Did any of your characters develop a sort of life of their own, changing the story from what you had planned? No, actually not really. Sometimes the arcs would wrap up and a new arc would start, but generally when I start a new arc, I have an idea of where it's going. Maybe not the most concrete idea, but it's a pretty solid idea in the sense that it's not going to go astray, And I feel like I've got a pretty tight leash on my characters. They have their own parameters, they have their own personalities, but they all exist within me. All of them share traits with me, different traits. All of them are different aspects of who I am. So it's fairly easy for them to stay on track because, I just pull them out of myself, basically. And even when they seem to veer off script-wise, that's still part of the plan. It's still part of their adventure because they need to evolve too. That's how character arcs work. They need to grow, they need to evolve, they need to change, but those changes are all within the context of what I have in mind for them. Nobody's going rogue, not on my watch, because these are my people, these are my characters. I have the ultimate control over them. Okay, wow, that was a lot of really great questions. I hope I answered everything you guys wanted to know. If you want to do more of these, I can aim to do these maybe every couple of months or something, so let me know in the comments if that's what you want. And yeah, this is going to be the last audio for a couple of weeks while I'm out of town. But when I get back, the regular upload schedule will resume and we'll be back on track. So stay tuned for the duckathon. Stay tuned for more audios in a couple of weeks. And until then, be good. I'll talk to you soon.